for me, the greatest gift is not the money. It's not anything else that's material or external to me. But I think for me, that the biggest thing is who I've become in that process. The person who I am today has been shaped because of this industry.
What is up? Welcome to the After Life Insurance Podcast. Today, my guest is Matt Seibert, who is the Director of Agent Development for Life 180. This was a super cool conversation. Matt is one of the most interesting people that I know, for sure. This episode turned into a mixture of dirty jobs and ancient Greek philosophy. We talk a little bit about life insurance, but we really get into Stoic philosophy and how our careers can be a catalyst for our personal growth and development. Most people don't know, but 90% of life insurance agents quit within the first year, which is a pretty crazy statistic if you really stop and think about it. Life insurance is a really difficult industry to get into, and Matt has been in it for 10 years at this point. He's built million-dollar teams, and he's coached a lot of successful people using, in a large part, Stoic philosophy and principles, and he really gets into that today. Matt shares a ton of awesome tips, gives actionable advice, and really demonstrates how Stoic philosophy can be used to help create a better mindset that's going to create more success in your life. So you're going to want to stick around for this entire episode because it gets really good. So without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, Matt? Thanks for coming on today. Thanks for being my guest on the After Life Insurance Podcast. I appreciate you coming in today and sharing a little bit about your experience, what you've accomplished in the life insurance industry, and really what I'm curious about, because the statistic is that 93% of life insurance agents fail out within the first 5 years. And I think it's 90% within the first year. So you've been in the industry for 8 or 10 years at this point. I'm really curious about what has drawn you to want to work in this industry and continue to work in this industry when most people at this point have long since left.
Well, thanks for having me, Ian. Excited to be on your podcast. And I'm excited to have our discussion. I think we can kind of talk about things that we enjoy talking about. But yeah, I mean, this industry is definitely tough. Like you said, over 90% of agents fail. I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of agents fail could be reduced significantly. That's why if you find me on LinkedIn, my tagline says I'm on a mission to reverse the 90% failure rate for insurance agents, because I think a lot of it could totally be removed. I think when you look at it outside in, when you say, wow, 90% of agents quit or they fail, you're going to have failure. But in my definition, true failure is when you quit. You're going to go through failure, right? But it doesn't mean you failed. But when you say, I quit, I'm done, to me, that's failure. But I think if you were to really peel back the reasons why a lot of agents quit, it's really not the agent's fault. It's a lot of these companies, the way they were recruited in. They joined these companies having certain expectations because they were sold a certain way to join their company. And then when they get in, it's completely different than what they expected. You know, there's a lot of companies that have poor training. They don't have mentorship. They provide a lot of promises, but don't deliver. So I think it's these like a lot of things like that where agents just completely give up because they assume every company is going to be like that. But I think deep down, that 90% could drop significantly, probably 50%, right? Because if you had the right expectation, you understood what it's going to take, and you had a plan, most people are not going to quit, because with the right expectation, now you're going to understand it's going to actually take a lot longer than you expected. Or if you had the right expectation, then you could decide at that point whether you want to actually do it or not, right? And I think that's where we can do a better job in the industry of getting really transparent and providing more clarity on agents. Like, hey, look, if you're going to get into this industry, you could have almost everything that you want, like income goals, success, whatever you're getting into the industry for. But here's the price you're going to have to pay. This is what you're going to have to go through. And then at that point, you're at that crossroad. You can make that decision. Like, is it worth it? Do I want to do it? But yeah, this industry is pretty tough. I've seen a lot of people come and go over the last decade. I still do. What has kept me in, first, I love a challenge. But what has really kept me in is the personal development side of this industry. So The way I look at it is like, I like using this analogy. Why do people work out? Like, why do people go to the gym? Why do people lift weights, right? To get healthy or to get stronger or to build muscle, right? Whatever, right? It could be physical or it could be internal. So when you work out, really what's happening is the purpose of working out is you're creating stress for your body, physical stress, mental stress. And what you're trying to do is with this controlled stress, your body is forced to adapt and become stronger. This is why you could lift a little bit more. This is why you're packing on muscle. And so when you think about working out in that term, like I'm creating stress on my body so it can adapt and it can become stronger, what is the best place to go to achieve that? To me, it's the gym. Now you can argue, hey, Matt, I can have a great workout running up a mountain or whatever. Case true. Like you could have great workout, you can create stress, but I don't think you would compete against a gym because a gym has everything. Like it has everything that you can to create stress in a lot of different ways. You got cardio, you got weights, you got different types of weights. And I think the gym is the best place to create controlled stress, to create the physique or the outcome or the health that you inspire to have, right? And so for me, when I think about all these different industries, real estate, mortgage, all this stuff, to me, I truly believe the life insurance industry is like the best, like the gym, like the best place where you can actually develop yourself because I think it possesses a wide variety of challenges, but in the right proportion, specifically for you to grow to who you need to become. It's crazy. It's like your weak points are going to be different than another person's weak points, right? Your strengths are going to be different than another person's strength. So it doesn't matter what your strengths and weaknesses are. When you come into this industry, will pull to the surface, specifically designed for you, the challenges that you're going to have to overcome for you to become great, like for you to develop into a better version of yourself. And so I think because of life insurance, there's just a lot of different wide variety of challenges. Like, some people, they fear talking with people. Some people, they fear sales transactions. Some people, they fear, developing their skills or talking about certain topic matters. And I think I never imagined I'd be here. I went to school for graphic design. So it's like, how the heck did I end up in this industry? I never once woke up in my life and said, you know what, I want to get into life insurance, right? I've been more of the creative type. I am more of the creative type. Went to school for graphic design, got a bachelor's. I actually started a magazine that went national. A lot of people don't know that. It got picked up by Barnes and Nobles. Then 2009, the market crashed, lost my magazine. I had to go find a job. I ended up working at University of Phoenix, work up the corporate ladder. I really love leadership. I've coached a lot of employees at that university. And that's when I got recruited in the industry. A high-level director said, hey, you should come, work in life insurance. I think you'd be pretty good at it because of your skills that you have with working with people and stuff like that. Gave it a shot. Next thing you know, I never looked back. Quit University of Phoenix, and I've been working for myself for the last decade. But yeah, it has not been easy. I've had a lot of ups and downs. I think some of the downs that I've been through, most people probably would not have been able to stomach. I think a lot of people, even I've been through instances where a lot of people judged me. Why are you still in there? What are you fighting for? Why are you still in? Why not change your career? Why don't you do something else? I've had a lot of those conversations. But man, I love the challenge. I think when I look back, there's been times where I made more money than I can imagine. There's times where I didn't make the money that I imagine. But when I look back, for me, the greatest gift is not the money. It's not anything else that's material or external to me. But I think for me, the biggest thing is who I've become in that process. The person who I am today has been shaped because of this industry, because of the specific challenges I had to overcome, the things that I had to, face to face with, my demons and the things that I'm scared about and the things I wanted to avoid. I had to face it. I had to go through it. And so for me, I'm really grateful for this industry, and mainly because it's who I've become in the process. And now when I look into the future, it's like, wow, this person I've become, I just want to take that and help other people go through their journey and help develop other people and help people on their path and hopefully reduce that 90% failure rate. That is definitely my mission. And that's what I'm working towards.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. And for those who don't know, which is probably everybody, I mean, I've made a YouTube video talking about how I got into life insurance, and you were actually an integral part of that. And we met in November of last year, almost a year ago, in Houston at a large WFG event. And for those who don't know, WFG is a MLM style life insurance company. And I was recruited into that, and I didn't know anything about it. It seemed like an interesting opportunity, and I wanted to learn more about finance and how to handle my personal finance and how to get my financial life in order. So I got into that, not really understanding what it all entailed and the history behind that company and some of the business practices that they employ. But that's where I met Matt, who was there on a mission, on a mission, so to speak, to expose what was going on there. And everybody's going to have their own experience. It's a huge company. Some parts of it are there are some teams and some parts of that organization that, from what I understand, operate in a more economical way or more ecological way that are actually helping people. There are a lot of teams and aspects of that company that are not helping people, quite frankly. I witnessed that for the most part. It's a big organization. There's a lot of things happening. I wasn't able to see all of it, but what I did see was really disheartening. And when I realized what was going on, was able to take in the full scope of, oh my gosh, like this, what the products that these people are selling, with the belief that they're helping folks, that is not actually what's happening. Like people are selling products that they don't really understand, and it's potentially putting their customers in financial danger and endangering their future and their retirements. And I mean, this is a huge rabbit hole that we could potentially go down. But I know, Matt, you started in a similar kind of a company. So you've been able to see different aspects of the life insurance industry, and you've worked in different kind of facets and different modalities. I mean, when we talk about life insurance, there's many different products within life insurance and many different styles of companies, many different styles of life insurance agencies. There's as many ways as you can think to sell life insurance and the variety of products that they exist. So I'm curious, going back to that time in November, from then to now, like going into that event in November where we met, what was your mindset at? And now, where are you at?
Well, I've been in that model, the WFG model. If you've never heard of WFG, they're in the same bucket of a company called PHP, GFI, PFA. And ultimately, these companies in the industry, they're known as multi-level marketing companies. You actually have to pay to join, and they have an emphasis on recruiting. So they prey on people that have no experience in the industry, and they want to take somebody that doesn't know much and kind of use them as a way to be able to get through their friends and family and recruit it and stuff like that. And that's where I started. And that's why I know so much about that type of model. So I spent time there. I spent time in another model completely opposite of that. There's really two basic models, but both of them I found a lot of issues with, integrity and stuff. And then I found myself at Life 180. It's really the first and only company that I've known of that it's really focused on doing the right thing, right? Putting people first. And so this is where I plant my flag. And when I got into this company, I came in with really no expectation. I just was aligned. I was in alignment with Chris, the CEO, and what we're about and our mission, go out, help people and educate them and put them on the right path. And so when we went to that event, that was just kind of I just want to see, if WFG are still doing the slimy things, the things that are basically half truths. And so I wanted to go to really see, like, have they ever changed? Is there hope? And unfortunately, no. So I went, they did their spiel, they did their presentation, the hype, the raw, and it was just all completely just lies. And I saw all the brainwashing, and it was really sad to see. And so from that point on and until now, in between, I've interviewed a lot of agents that are coming over from WFG, PHP, at least companies. And, I'm interviewing them, kind of learning about their experience. And really the purpose of the interview is to help them see, hey, are we a good fit for them? Like, this is kind of what we do. This is how we're different. Is this something that you're looking for? Of course, everybody's like, wow, that's exactly what I've been looking for. But really, the big difference is that that's where my call to action, that's where my calling has really come from. Because when I realized all these agents are being lied to and all these agents are going through the same crap and all this stuff, and I thought, when is this ever going to stop? When is anybody going to ever stand up and say, okay, this is wrong, we need to stop it, right? And I thought, well, the companies are not going to do it. And I thought, I thought hard, and I just, man, I don't know if it was a calling or a signal. I don't know, but I just understood at one point that if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's probably going to be me. And that's because of my personal experience, my desire to do the right thing, my desire to help people. And when I see something like that, these companies are big. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of money. Some of them are public companies, so you can actually invest stocks into them. So, they have a lot of leverage in the industry. And I thought, you know what, if there's anybody that's going to go up against them and call them out, I feel pretty confident. I don't care about what people have to say, because everything I say is going to be objective. It is going to be true. The only people that are not going to like what I have to say are those leaders in those companies that are selling the lies. But why is it worth it? Well, it's worth it because all of these agents that I interview, they authentically, they want to get into this industry to go out and help people. They're sold a dream of like, we can go out and help people financially. Because let's face it, in our industry, in our country, financial literacy and knowing what to do with money, it's not really taught, right? And if we have any information that's related to finances, it's spewed out from industries that are trying to make money off of that education. So it's like, it's a whole system that's designed to give money to the same corporations that are teaching us what to do with our money. And I could get behind that. And I think a lot of people could get behind that. It's like a crusade of going out and helping people and educating them, letting them know of all the different options that are available to them. Unfortunately, these companies, they utilize that as an advantage to get them in, but they don't tell them the full story. And they're selling, products that are not really helpful for people. They're totally misrepresented and stuff like that. So for me, when I'm working with a lot of these agents and I'm interviewing them, I'm thinking like, this is bad. Every week I'm talking to agents. Think about it. Every single week I talk to agents, not only how they got lied to with their own policies, that they were getting lied to as far as the story of what they're there to do and their mission and stuff like that. And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon. And so, I just decided, I said, you know what, I'm going to take on that challenge. And I don't care if it's me, but I can say this. I know without a doubt, if I start it, there'll be a big movement of people waking up. I know without a doubt, because they're not doing the right thing. And I think all of us, no matter what industry we're in, there is some rationality within us that we know what's right and we know what's wrong. And from my experiences over the last 10 years, there's more people that want to do the right thing than not. So, it seems like it's me against like, big behemoths and stuff like that. But I would argue, yeah, I might start it, but I think I would have more people backing me at the end once we get the motion going and exposing all this stuff.
Yeah, that's a monumental task because, as you said, these companies like WFG, GFI, they're huge. WFG has somewhere between 50, 60, maybe 70,000 agents. And man, I was able to see it from the inside. And just like you did, it's a huge machine. And there's a lot of, as you said, money and marketing and momentum. And I've been trained in NLP and different forms of communication that's very specific and meant to target people's unconscious mind. And when I was in those rooms and just in that environment, it was very clear to me like, oh, these people are using techniques, very specific techniques to manipulate the people that are in the audience. And I use the word manipulate because that's really what it is. And I typically don't assign a good or bad designation to the word manipulate, because a smile could be considered manipulation because you're trying to induce, if it's not a natural smile, like a smile could be intentionally used to induce a feeling in somebody else. Is that manipulation? But when you see somebody on the stage and you've had the kind of training that I've had, And the guy goes, "Who loves their family?" And he raises his hand. "Who loves America?" They raise their hand. "Who loves their children?" They raise their hand. And they said, "Isn't this the best product ever?" And they raise their hand. I recognize that as every time he gets the people in the audience to raise their hand, he's sending a subconscious message that raising your hand means yes, like affirmative, affirm this. So he gets everybody to raise their hand 3 times. And then every time he raises his hand after that, no matter what comes out of his mouth, the person is being programmed like, yes, this is true. Whatever this is, why everyone around me is raising their hand, I maybe don't know, but that is just, part of our psychology. It's built into us.
Yeah.
And some very smart and cunning people have learned how to utilize these things and help people through like different psychological issues. I mean, it's just a tool. But I was like, as you alluded to, these are big machines, and everything is really well thought out, and everything is intentional that they're doing. Every word that they use, why they do what they do, in what order, why they even have the big events. I mean, everything is intentional, and it's for a reason, and it's to get the people within the organization to do something. And again, also, like you said, I met a lot of really kind, good-hearted people within that organization. And I also believe that the overwhelming majority of those people did not really understand the product that they were selling or who that product could potentially be helpful for. It was being sold to anybody and everybody, particularly in the instance that I'm thinking of is the IUL, a very specific form of cash value life insurance. It's gotten very popular over the last few years. And while, I believe there is a time and a place where that tool can be useful, the overwhelming majority of the time, it is not the appropriate thing for the person that's being sold to. And so I mean, and that was my personal experience. And before I ever joined Life 180, the agency that I'm with now, where Matt also is the director of agent development, I left WFG because I realized like there is something really wrong here. And I took 6 weeks to just study and learn and figure out how these products actually work before committing to joining Life 180. It wasn't just jumping ship. I really had to get my head around this stuff because there are a lot of nuances, and these products can be incredibly complex. So yeah, I've had quite a journey with it. I know, Matt, you've had a similar sort of coming full circle and realizing that potentially what you've been told or what you were led to believe is not the objective truth. And so I'm really curious about your experience in talking with people that are coming in who are just starting to have that realization. What are these conversations like with the people who are coming out of that environment where there's a lot of belief placed on the organization, on the system, on the products, and they start to come out of that and awaken, so to speak, and realize, what I thought was true might not actually be true. Like, what are these conversations that you're having like?
Actually, I should record a lot of these because it is revealing. These conversations are pretty easy because all I do is I show them, hey, do you remember when they did this and said this is why they do it? And it's like almost every meeting's a aha moment, like, oh, I get it now, right? And so all I really do is I don't have to say, hey, they're bad. I don't have to even really try to combat them. I just say, hey, look, why did you get in the first place, right? And try to figure out what their desire is in the industry and what they want to accomplish. And then I show them, well, if this is what you wanted, why did they do this? And then I have them start thinking, they're like, that is kind of the opposite direction of why I want to get into this industry. And it is the opposite direction of what they told me in the beginning. And so I have them start thinking, then I point out, well, this is why they do that. And when they see it allows them to zoom out and see the game that's being played, and then they get it. Oh, I get it now, right? And so really these models, it's really like cult tactics because there's a big game being played, but they play the game of slowly reveal. And they only show you a small part of the game. And then if they trust you and if you stay around longer, especially if you have agents under you and you have a team, what that creates is leverage. They know you're not going to quit now. You have 4 or 5 people, right? They have their hooks in a little bit stronger. So when you have a team and you have people with you, now they reveal a little bit more. Now they reveal a little bit more. Now they reveal a little bit more, to the point where when they reveal the bigger scheme of things, you realize like, holy crap, this is what we're doing. But then at that point, they have so much leverage. You have so much to lose this is why there's actually a lot of leaders in these companies. They're disgruntled. They want to leave, but their whole livelihood is based on what they have built, right? So for some of them, it's hard to walk away from 10, 20, 30 grand a month. So that's just a moral thing that they're going to have to battle, and they're going to have to figure that out. And that's all designed that way. Is, one of the things they say in leadership is when you bring agents aboard, create an environment where they have something to lose and they always stay with you. And these are the games that they play. And so if we can get you to build a team, get some income coming in, and another thing is they'll put people on your team. So now you got something to lose. When you get something, when you have somebody and you want to control them, they have something to lose and you have leverage over that. That's what the company's built on. And that's really the big problem.
Yeah. And I encountered a lot of people in that environment who were really big on self-development. And on some level, I believe that people recognized, like you said initially, that there is a huge opportunity for self-development within the life insurance industry, and also to potentially make a good living. So people are attracted to that. And I heard it once called a personal development program that you get paid from. I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to put it. And I could see that. And how this industry, and specifically the fact that there is a big leaning towards entrepreneurialism in life insurance. Like, nothing is given to you. You have to go out and get it. You have to be motivated to go out and talk to people and get outside of your comfort zone. And for me, I've realized just recently, like, entrepreneurialism and having a committed relationship have been the two biggest teachers for me, outside of the people who are really close to me and my family. Those have been the two biggest teachers as far as external forces that I've ever encountered. And, in thinking about the personal development aspect of this business, for people who are really interested in personal development and want to continue to grow their skills and develop new skills, why are so many people who are interested in personal development interested in this industry?
When I went back with the analogy of for your body to go through adapting to strength and getting stronger, the gym is the best because it has pretty much all the machines, everything that you need to grow in whatever your focus is on. If you want to do leg strengths, they got tons of machines designed for legs. If you want to just do upper body, you could do that. If you want to work on your heart and cardio, they got to do that. They all in one spot. They have whatever you want to build and get stronger, and it has. So on the personal development side, life insurance, what I found is it really has everything. And not against anything about realtors and people in mortgage. What I find a lot of these other industries where you are working for yourself in a sense, right? The level of strength and challenges is not as high as life insurance. And I would argue that if any realtors wants to go on a debate, I would argue that. And I'm not saying that real estate wouldn't be challenging. I don't make this sound bad, but I think it's a little bit softer. It's like, going on hikes and stuff. But life insurance is like truly like a gym, because the skills that, if you want to really be good in this industry, the skills that you're going to have to develop, it could be a challenge for some people, right? But what I love about this industry, the skills that you need to develop are 100% within your control. So now when we zoom out of like this industry, what I love about it is everything in this industry you can have. It's completely within your control, right? So now it's like the real fight is between you and you. It's all mental. And that's what I love about this industry. Doesn't matter how talented you are, what skills you have, it doesn't matter. This industry is the great equalizer, right? because you might be good at talking with people, but I promise you, you're going to suck in one area. Whereas some people might, be horrible at talking with people. They'll be good in one area. It's the great equalizer because it will really find and bring to the surface the weakness that you've been hiding or avoiding working on in one capacity or next. So it's a great equalizer because for you to become good, you're going to have to draw on those weaknesses and you have to improve them. And I think people in personal development, a lot of people, they join these personal development, MLMs and programs and stuff like that. And what I find is a lot of the true personal development comes in taking action, not knowledge. And I think a lot of these programs are really focused on knowledge and understanding stuff. But if you don't go apply it, you can't obtain the level of knowledge and skills than just learning from it. And where life insurance, it requires you to take the action. And this is where, this contributes to the 90% of reason why agents fail. I think it's a little lower than that, but it's because a lot of agents, they come into this industry and they're just wants to consume and learn and, oh, this is great. This is awesome how we can help people. And because it feels good. We release dopamine, we release good, feel good chemicals when we learn new things, right? We obtained it. And so we like that feeling. And then we contrast that to like, oh, I actually have to now apply it. I actually have to say this to somebody. That's a whole different level, right? And I think that's where a lot of agents, they run away from. That's where they stop, is now I'm going from a good feeling to now a fear feeling of, man, I'm going to be judged, or what if I say it the wrong way, or what if they say no? And so in this industry, what's cool is for you to become good, you actually have to apply what you've learned. You can't sit back and just learn. And that really separates us from a lot of industries where you could just sit back and, the level of skill is not really high enough. But yeah, anybody that's looking for personal development, I challenge you, man. This industry, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'll leave you with this. Like, regardless of what you're feeling about this industry, everything is within your control. And that's what I love about it. You want to succeed? If you're not succeeding, if you're not reaching the level that you want, just focus on things that are within your control that you're not controlling, that you're not, taking action on. So it eliminates a lot of excuses, which is kind of cool.
And that reminds me of a quote that I heard recently. And it's not Chris Williamson's quote, but I heard Chris Williamson say this: the magic that you're seeking lies within the work that you're avoiding. It's something very similar to that. And, what you just said really rung a bell for me and brought that quote up. Mm-hmm. And so I know that you've studied Stoicism, and this is something you and I have in common. It's been a while since I've been deep in Seneca or Marcus Aurelius, but there was a point in my life where I studied those texts quite a bit. So I'm really curious as to how your education and what your understanding of Stoicism and how that ties in with your approach to leadership, your approach to life insurance, and how that's maybe flavored what you do.
Yeah, Stoicism, it really changed my life. I mean, when you look at Stoicism on YouTube and look it up, most of the stuff that you'll find, it's not even Stoicism. It's not even true. And that's what's intriguing about Stoicism. So how did I even get introduced to Stoicism? So ironically, although I'm not for the WFG model and all that, when I was there for about 8 years in that type of model, I did have a mentor that it was truly amazing. And he wasn't so much on the company. He was more on the people side. And, I don't think there's too many mentors like him, but unknowingly for 8 years, he trained me. We talked every single day. He coached every single day for 8 years straight. It was a long journey. So unknowingly, he was actually coaching me and training through Stoic principles. And I didn't understand what was going on. It just made sense to me. And so a lot of the things, how I looked at the industry, were through the lens that he actually had me look through. And they're really based on Stoic principles. And it all makes sense. And we'll kind of dive into it. But when COVID happened, that's when like the company went under and everybody kind of split ways. And that's when I left, and our 8-year mentorship pretty much ended at that point. And so, when you have a mentor in your life that really contribute to your growth, and then you separate, it feels a little different. Like, okay, it's like, okay, now like I'm living life on my own. It's almost like, I left my parents' house in a sense, right? And so I think there was a moment in time when we were going through COVID, the world was upside down. I was really looking for something like principles or something that I can live by that would help me also give me structure and guidance in life, right? I went to church. I think Christianity was appealing to me, not so much of the religious aspect of, God and all that, but more so in the Bible, it has a lot of things that they teach that also gives you structure and a way to live life, right? That, we can see it has a good outcome. So Christianity didn't do it for me. There's just a lot of things that it just didn't connect with me. Then I studied, Buddhism, Hinduism, and which I'm really fascinated by because a lot of the teaching, especially Hinduism, if you really look into what they teach, they were beyond their time. What they have been teaching way prior to like Stoicism and Christianity we're coming to find in science as far as consciousness and stuff like that. So that's amazing. Now, the only issue with Buddhism and Hinduism and stuff like that, a lot of the stuff, it's not really practical. It's just like concepts that gives you ways you can look at life, but it's not like practical for a lot of people. So, but I really love it. I still do love it. And I remember one day I came across Stoicism I heard about it. I didn't understand what it was, to be honest. And I came across Stoicism on the internet and start reading about Marcus Aurelius and stuff like that. And this is what happened. It was like a spark. I was reading through some of the concepts and the foundational stuff for Stoicism, and I thought, this was exactly what my mentor was teaching me. This is really odd. It was scary. Like the connections were like almost like in his words, and I didn't understand what was going on. I was confused. I'm thinking like, why is this so familiar to me? This is odd. And so I came across the College of Stoic Philosophers. And so I wanted formal training. Like I really wanted to understand it because if you look online, you just have people giving opinions and stuff like that. And it was kind of diluted. So I went through a year-long program with their basic course. And then I loved it so much, I ended up spending another 2 years in their advanced program. And so I literally just finished. And now I'm working towards becoming faculty. Actually, today I talked to my first student, which is kind of cool. So I'm in the practicum and I'm working towards becoming a faculty member. It's not paid, it's for profit, but I want to go out and, it's not about making money. It's about really sharing and guiding. But today I actually have my first student, which is kind of cool. But that college really, they teach traditional Stoicism. And a lot of the things that you see now on YouTube is modern Stoicism. I don't want to get into the whole difference, but there is a difference. It's a secular form. But a lot of the basic Stoic principles really are based on virtue, right? Like kind of what you said of, I don't look at things are good or bad. That's very Stoic, right? There is no good or bad. Really, the only good in this world is your character, virtue, because it's the only thing that you can really control in that sense. And so a lot of the virtues, the main virtues that they believe in is courage, having courage, temperance. So temperance is almost same as moderation. Not too much, not too little, right? Right in the middle. And it's more of a controlling your urges, right? So if you're having chocolate cake, just have a little bit, enjoy it. Let's not eat the whole dang cake, right? If you want to buy something, let's not go buy the whole store, right? It's coming from a frame of control, right? So we got courage, we got temperance, we got justice. That just really relates to doing the right thing. And then wisdom. And wisdom is accumulated by actually applying courage, applying temperance, applying justice. And wisdom is attained through actually going out and taking action in the world, knowing how much courage, because too much courage could be dangerous, right? If you have too much courage, like, hey, I don't know if you'd want to do that. And then knowing what's a little bit too little courage, right? And how much is enough? Like how much is too much, right? And wisdom is knowing, what is right, what is wrong, right? So you attain wisdom, but those are the main lenses that I grew up in this industry. There was times where I was afraid to talk to people. There was times where I'm like, oh man, making phone calls or going on to clients. And really the overarching communication when I grew up in this industry was like, it's courage. Like everything that we held to the highest degree was a courageous person. And so for me, I always called on that. Like the times I felt like, oh, I was scared to talk to somebody or call somebody or take any type of action, I always remembered like, okay, is this being courageous or is this being weak? And I always sided with courage, right? We're not perfect, but, and then temperance, temperance is big in this industry. And so let me tell you why. This industry, you're going to have a lot of emotional roller coasters and you're going to have highs and lows. And a lot of the emotions are really set on a lot of the expectations that you have, right? So for instance, I learned when I started making money, my excitement level got so high, like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I made so much money. I'm gonna be rich and I'm gonna blow this up, right? So when you contrast that to the time when you're not making money, it's such a huge gap, right? And so I would have all these highs and lows. When things are going great, I was the most excited person to be around. When things were not going great, I was just like depressed because it's such a wide gap. And so my mentor always taught me, look, always stay in the middle. If something, happens that you're excited about, be excited, but don't go overboard, right? And if things happen, don't go overboard. And he always had me stay in the middle. And it always stuck with me on appointments because I would get overly excited. And I think a lot of the excitement for a lot of people is because we assume or we presume, right? We presume that there's a high probability that we're going to attain something. And what we find is a lot of the things that we think we're going to attain, that's not in our control, right? And so staying in the middle was really key coming up in the industry. And of course, justice, this is why I left that company. This is why I left Family First Life, because for me, it was instilled in me, always do the right thing, always put people first. Well, if you instilled in me doing the right thing, the IUL and stuff, how we're selling it, how we're misrepresenting it, to me, that's not the right thing. And then when I went to Family First Life, how they're pitching these policies to me, that's not doing the right thing. And so I left both companies, which by the way, I built a $1 million agency on both and I completely walked away because to me, doing the right thing is more important than making, and unfortunately for a lot of people, it's actually flipped. It's making money than doing the right thing second. And then I think because of the courage and the temperance and the things that I've experienced, I've obtained wisdom to know what kind of company I want to be with and one company I don't want to be with. And it's through the wisdom where a lot of people, they say, why do you like Life 180? What's because the wisdom, all the things that I've experienced. I know exactly what I want. I know it's in alignment with doing the right thing. And, this is why I'm here. But Stoicism for me, it really changed because I don't want to get into a whole lecture about it because I can, but a lot of the things in our lives that create troublesome sadness, fear, anxiety, it's because we desire or we avoid things that are not actually in our control, and with the Stoics, what they believed is really the only thing you should desire is a good character, because that is really ultimately the only thing you can control, right? You can control whether to do the right thing or not. You can control whether you have courage and stuff like that. And to me, they held virtue, like they held character at the highest regard. There was nothing else higher than character, right? And this is why Stoicism fascinates me. We had Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. I mean, he was control of basically at that time, the whole entire world, the most powerful man in the entire world. But he was so humble, and you could read his meditations and read his words, which by the way, was never meant for the public. It was his internal, like writing, personal writing, right? And a lot of people don't know this is that actually wasn't a journal. It was actually spiritual exercises. He was actually practicing. Just as if you're role playing a script and you're trying to get the words down and get it internalized, that was actually a form of internalizing Stoic values. It wasn't just like a journal, but when you read through it, wow, it's like a man this powerful could have had anything in his world. And the struggles he had were like it's the same struggles you and I would have, right? And how he's overcoming that, utilizing Stoic principles. And to me, that's amazing. And then we had Seneca, he was wealthy, he was very successful in politics and stuff like that. But, it goes to show you, it's like they're two different people, completely different, but the commonality is how they live their life. And then Epictetus is like one of my favorite. He was a slave, and he talks about how, in when he was a slave, he was so happy because it wasn't about being a slave. He could not be a slave if he had full control of his virtues, right? And it's a different sense of freedom. So to bring it back, I think our society, a lot of the negative emotions that we get, it's self-made. And so what Stoicism does, it gives you like a framework, an algorithm where you can look at the world through a certain lens where it actually reduces a lot of the negative emotions and allows you to, they say to live the good life, live a happy life. And really the happiness is coming from within us and it's nothing external. But in our world, we're programmed and really taught that happiness comes from external, outside of us. And that's a huge shift. And I especially in this industry, to bring it back, this industry, this is how WFG and a lot of these companies get you to do things, is they actually program you and tie happiness to making money. And this is why it's all screwed up. And these agents are like so down on themselves because they're not making the money. They see so-and-so making 50 grand a month and then their self-worth is tied to because they're not making the money. I'm like, it's completely anti-Stoic. So I think Stoic is a great way to actually have a great experience in this industry, great experience in life. It's a philosophy of action, of not only just learning, but actually taking what you learn and applying it. And I truly believe, because I've seen it in my own life, I've seen it with a lot of people that I coach. If you apply the principles, it will change your life. I mean, less fear, less negative, less anger. And I think all of us want to live a happy life, but we do a lot of things that are counterintuitive to living a happy life. But that's my spiel on that.
Yeah, I feel like you could have gone on a lot longer spiel
Oh, I could have.
had you wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's really beautiful, and I think a very good summation of.
One more thing I want to add, and I have to say this because this is what separates traditional Stoicism. And when I say traditional Stoicism, I mean the Stoicism as the ancients saw it, right? Today, the Stoicism is like almost like a mind hack or something like that, right? It's like some mind hack that you can use topically to overcome adversity. And Stoicism cannot work applied topically. It's like spraying bug spray on roots or weeds, right? Stoicism, for it to work, you have to actually rip out the roots and till the soil. And it's like an inner work. It's not something that happens right away. But the key thing about Stoicism, a lot of people don't even know. Was the most shocking thing that I learned about Stoicism. My gosh, is all of this stuff is great, right? What is in my control? What's up to me? What's not up to me? Great character, virtues. All of this, the whole purpose of this would not even matter without their philosophy and understanding that why they did all of this, why they viewed all of this was simply because it was living according to nature. And so you think about like, what does that mean? And this is what blew my mind. And a lot of people don't understand. The Stoics believed nature had a rationality to it. Like it was alive, like the world was an organism, right? I know some of you guys are probably hearing like, what the heck? And I'm not doing a good job putting context to it, but they say we would not have reason and rationality if the latter wasn't true. Like if they didn't have if the world, nature. And so there was a little bit of determinism in their philosophy saying what we experience in life, it's not in our control because nature already has a plan and we're a small part of that plan. So why be mad at something that happened? Because it's really not up to us. And when you live life like that, it's like, that's a different way to live life, right? Because I think a lot of us complain like, I can't believe this happened. And we're just a small ant of a bigger plan that nature has intended for us. There's nothing we could do. It's like we're going down a river, right? Now, that river is going where it's going to go. You can't change the direction of the river. But what the Stoics believe, but you're in a canoe, you do have some ways to maneuver. It's not like you're stuck. You do have a little ways to maneuver through life, but that river's going where it's going. Like you have no say. And when you think about the Stoics, they really believed in cosmic nature and they had an element of God. It's not like the God like, Jesus or somebody in the sky. But it ties into like Hinduism and stuff like this consciousness, right? And it's one of the things people they don't even know that the Stoics believe that. And when you dive deeper, it is crazy the amount of stuff that they understood that now with science we're coming to find that is true. Down to they Marcus, one of his, I probably am going to say it wrong, but one of the famous quotes that is always repeated through him, he always would say providence or atoms. I mean, how did they know atoms existed at that time? I mean, seriously. But what he was ultimately saying is, are we just living in a world without consciousness? It's just material and we just happen to come here and this has just happened on accident? Or is there providence? There's meaning behind it, right? And so he would always say that, is it providence or atoms? Because they believed in providence. So the main thing about Stoicism that I want people to understand is when you watch a lot of this Stoic stuff on YouTube, a lot of it's garbage. It's topical. They're trying to monetize it. But if you're really interested in learning Stoicism, I would recommend going to the College of Stoic Philosophy. They'll actually teach you traditional Stoicism as the ancient Stoics actually, lived their life. And it's really amazing. I wish that's my goal, is to really get all of this stuff out there so people can understand it. So I left you with that. Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's awesome. It really reminds me of Taoism in a lot of ways, the wisdom of nature, and trusting that nature has its own way and we're not separate from it. We are part of it. And I think living in that way where we can recognize that we are just part of a much bigger process. And our life is just a cycle. Memento mori, or one of the Stoic axioms, remember you will die. They're constantly bringing you back and helping you to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Like, okay, this too will pass. There's constant reminders built into Stoicism that, okay, regardless of what you're feeling on a personal level, like the things that happen to you in your life are largely out of your control and it's not personal. If you take something personal, that's on some level by choice. You can choose to take that step back and say, hey, you know what? Like, this thing happened. I am experiencing this, whatever it may be, and it is my choice how I respond. One of the big takeaways for me from Stoicism, and something I think about a lot still to this day, is how the ancient Greeks would talk about emotions. They would never say, I am sad, or I am happy, or I am an emotion. They would say, I'm experiencing happiness. I'm experiencing sadness. I'm experiencing grief, whatever it is. And that was just built into their speech and their language patterns, this reinforcing, like, I'm not that. I'm just experiencing this, and all experience is temporary. And that constant reminder and that constant reinforcement, like you said, it's not just a topical thing. When you really start to apply these principles to your life and start to meditate on these things and start to bring these practices into reality and take action on these things over and over again, just like the analogy of the gym, you start to flex these muscles of Stoicism or whatever the teaching is. The more you flex those muscles, the stronger they get. And over time, you start to realize, like, oh, I'm just naturally finding myself in that middle space, that space of temperance. The highs aren't as high, the lows aren't as low. And you start to be able to self-regulate, which is in this culture of consumerism, like you mentioned, like our dopamine systems have been hacked by our culture, and we're very reactive to the different stimuli around us and just the way our lives have been set up. So when we can start to come to that place of equilibrium and self-awareness and recognizing when we get out of balance, and having those different kinds of philosophies and tools and understandings and bits of wisdom that we can lean on to bring us back to that state of balance, I think you can't hack that. You can't just read the Instagram, the three-liner on Instagram quote that's gonna, it might give you a momentary like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then you go right back into your old thing. No, if you really apply this to your life, and I think this goes with a lot of the self-development principles and things you can learn. If you really apply it to your life and practice it, that is where the gold is. And that's where you really start to enjoy the benefits of it, is by, like you said, applying and taking action upon these things.
And that, man, that's so true. And it's like, I was thinking about the Christianity when I was going into like Christianity and the life lessons and stuff like that. I have an old book and there's history and you can look this up, but back in the day when Christianity first formed, a lot of the monks, they were taking stuff from Epictetus. Same with the Muslim culture. So a lot of the life lessons that are kind of embedded in Christianity, they are kind of derived from Stoicism. And so for me, I was like, wow, I'd rather get to the root, right? And I always thought that was amazing. When I came across that book, you can actually, there's a photograph of the old book and you could see the monks writing in the Bible. And it's literally almost word for Epictetus, but they just kind of switched out words. I'm like, wow, that's fascinating.
That's super cool. And man, I did not plan on this necessarily going into a conversation about Stoicism,
Yeah.
but it really, to bring it back and tie it all together, I think one of the appeals for me, again, in the life insurance industry, was that aspect of self-development, and that it requires you to strengthen the parts of your psyche or your behaviors that maybe you avoid. For me, talking to people and having certain conversations had been challenging at other points in my life. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden I find myself in a situation where that weakness is exposed, or whatever your weakness is. And it's interesting as we start to build teams and I start to see people come in, it's like you start to recognize, like, oh, this industry, it just pulls up all the things that get stuffed down and that we tend to avoid, because in a certain sense, there has to be a level of being able to do everything to a certain degree. You can't necessarily just compartmentalize things. Like, you have to be able to, in some context, talk to people. You have to be comfortable with sales. You have to be comfortable with talking about death and asking challenging questions and challenging people's beliefs. And which, in order to do that, you have to have a certain degree of confidence in yourself and your own beliefs.
Yeah.
So the amount of growth that I've experienced in the life insurance industry, and like just the potential that I see, even for people who never sell a policy, they get into it. I've had a couple people on my team. One person I'm thinking of specifically, he may never write a policy, quite frankly. He's like, oh, this has been such a learning process for me. Like, I've gotten so much from just learning about financial education, but also sales, marketing, what it takes to be an entrepreneur. If I want to start my own business, what that entails, like what it means to be in a team, what it means to be self-motivated and be my own boss. So yeah, I guess I'll give you the final words, which if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, just having this talk, it's funny. We went in the whole direction of Stoicism. It just occurred to me, I was thinking about, that question, 90% of agents fail. How did I survive that? And I can honestly say, I can attribute to most of it is through Stoic principles that I unknowingly was actually taught. That's crazy when I think about it. I'm like, holy crap. And I think that's so far true. That's so true, because if you look at most agents, why they quit, it's just because of the perspective. That's it. How they're looking at certain things that get them to quit. So I just had an epiphany right now. So, but yeah, with that, I think if anybody's thinking about getting in this industry, man, I think the rewards are far greater than any time that you put in. It's far greater than any money that you put towards or for education or anything like that, because the rewards, I think it's ultimately a newer version of you that I don't think you would have got the same growth in any other capacity. You could get growth in a lot of different careers. You could get growth in a lot of things. But I think, like I said, life insurance, this industry, because of the unique challenges, the specific growth that you will get, there's portions and sides of it you won't get anywhere else. And so, but yeah, that's last words right there.
Awesome, Matt. Well, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation today. Again, I don't enter these interviews or these podcasts with a set direction or a list of questions. I like to let things flow. And I'm super grateful that you're willing to share some of your knowledge with us and tell us about your story. And yeah, thank you again very much. And there will be links in the show notes to Matt's social media and where you can get a hold of him. If you'd like to learn more about being an agent with Life 180, he's going to be the guy that you talk to. And yeah, he's been helping a lot of people very recently and over the last few months get out of situations that maybe weren't in their best interests, and helping to expose people to a side of life insurance that they probably didn't even recognize or realize was there. So yeah, so if you want to reach out to Matt and talk to him, his information will be in the show notes below. So thank you very much, Matt, and everyone out there, take care. Yeah, you're welcome. Take care and be well.